What are some psychology experiments with interesting results? The monster experiment. Although it is horrible how they left the children with mental health issues at the end, this experiment gave very good insight to how to parent a child. On this experiment, they took groups of orphan children and separated them into 3 groups. One was a control, the second were told they has a lips and were doing bad, and the third was told that their speech was perfect. As the experiment went on, Group 2 began developing lisps after being berated constantly. They became shy and reserved. They were scared to speak because they didn't want to get in trouble because of their poor speaking skills. Group 3, however, had the opposite happen. They talked better. They were more willing to improve. They were encouraged to keep speaking and told that their speech was amazing and perfect. By the end of the experiment, they had one group with no change, one group with now mentally ill children with a speech impediment, and one group with great speaking skills. It truly shows that encouraging children is the way to go, and that verbal abuse can be just as, if not more, harmful as physical abuse. Can all parents be required to study this, please? Not entirely sure it fits into the category, but the Rosenhan experiment. 13 people feigned mental illnesses to get into mental hospitals and all were admitted with different diagnoses. They then assumed their normal personalities, but to be released they all had to admit that they were mentally ill. There was a second part where a hospital challenged Rosenhan to send multiple fake patients to the hospital and they would rate their patients on a scale of whether they think they were faking. They identified many possible fakers, but Rosenhan in fact hadn't sent anyone. These are my favorite kind of studies. I love it when participants are given power and then lied to lol. The 3 Christs of Ypsilanti. Psychologist forces 3 people who believe that they are Jesus Christ to live together. It does not go well. The psychologist, Milton Rokeach, had heard of a case where 2 women who believed that they were Mary, Mother of Christ, were forced to live together, and one of them broke free from their delusion. So he figured, 3 Christs. What would happen? They were angry at each other, often had physical fights. They eventually started getting along by avoiding the topic. He would ask them about the others, and each would say that the others were crazy. That they, of course, were the real Jesus. No cures. Some unethical stuff. Interesting though. I was hoping to find this. The case study was in 1964. And they were all diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. They were all patients at Ypsilanti State Hospital, and while they didn't live together, they were in group therapy sessions. You can find the book on Amazon and there was a movie adaptation as well. I'm a huge fan of Milgram's Small World experiment. It is more sociology than psychology, but I still think it is really cool. Milgram sends out 160 letters containing the name and address of a stockbroker in Boston to people in Omaha, Nebraska. They had to send it to someone they thought would get the letter closer, but they couldn't mail it directly to the stockbroker. Interestingly, most people that sent on the letter sent it onto the same group of people on the 5th degree. It only took 6 people, hence the 6 degrees of separation, to arrive. On average, it shows how interconnected our world is. Even before the internet, which is happy to think about. Wow, how awesome that Milgram is famous for more than one experiment. And speaking of the internet, this is actually how packets on the internet are sent, TCP/IP. When you look up a website, the protocol doesn't know exactly how to get there. It just asks nearby computers to get you closer until you reach the website. Amazing how fast websites load considering this imperfect medium. Everything's coming up Milgram. Reconsolidation. When you retrieve memory from your long-term memory, it is susceptible to being manipulated. This can lead to memories being totally changed from the source. This is why eyewitness accounts cannot be fully seen as true. This knowledge is also being used to help people with PTSD by changing the negative memories they have of their particular trauma. It's not that psychopaths lack empathy, but rather, they have the manual settings. A specific region of the brain lights up when people experience empathy. For most people it's an automatic, subconscious response. But in a study where they showed emotional videos to psychopaths and while scanning their brains, Psychopaths would only light that region of the brain when specifically asked to feel for the character, while the controlled participants would light up automatically. So, would it be possible to be some kind of benevolent psychopath? One who always or mostly chooses to empathize. I actually know someone like this. He can entirely control his empathy. He works in a children's burn unit and sees awful shit every day that would devastate a normal person. He explained his empathy was on a manual setting and that he does feel for his partner and a few friends. And he can act empathetic when needed. However, he could handle the brutal death of a child and whistle on his way out the door when he went home. This dude is using his lack of empathy to help kids that are hard to even look at for most people, because he recognized and embraced his difference. He has been my friend for a decade and it's kinda like being friends with a beautiful, nice iguana. It is not like being friends with a dog or a cat. One time I participated in a paid research experiment. I was basically tricked into thinking I was drunk. I was placed in a room with 2 other people and we were instructed to drink vodka with cranberry juice over a period of time while we socialized. After we drank, I was placed in a room where I had to read some flashing words on a computer. I felt pretty drunk at this point. When the researcher came back into the room, he gave me my car keys and said I was never actually given alcohol. He briefly told me that, because I was anticipating drinking for this experiment, that my brain had tricked me into feeling the effects of being intoxicated. I immediately snapped out of it and was completely amazed at how I felt. I've done this to younger siblings and relatives that won't shut up about wanting to drink shots. We just rub a bit of alcohol around the rim of the shot glass and fill it with water. 3 deep and Thiel starts snoozing on the sofa within the hour. The chocolate martinis I make for my auntie who gets too tipsy too easily are basically chocolate milk with a splash of chocolate liquor. Like, the kids could probably drink them and be fine to drive home. Solomon Ash's experiment on conformity. He set up a test wherein he would show 3 lines of different lengths to 5 or 6 individuals. I forgot the exact number, who had to state which line was the longest of the 3. The thing is, only the last individual is the participant and the others are actors paid to answer in a specific manner. For the first few questions, they choose the correct answer, but later on they start choosing the wrong one. The participants are conflicted as to whether they will say the correct answer or conform to the wrong answer as to not be judged by others or due to self-doubt of their own answers. In the end, most do conform. It's really interesting, since it shows how powerful conformity is in the face of doubt. Up to a point that some even questioned their own sanity during the test. Another variation of the experiment also had interesting results. It had the same setup with 5 individuals, with the last person being the participant. However, this time some of the actors say the wrong answer, while one actor says the correct one. There was an increase in participants who would choose the correct answer and avoid conformity. It shows how much doubt one can have on oneself when alone, but be brought back to self-confidence when they find outside support. Edit. Conformity in participants might be caused by either being afraid others' judgment or due to self-doubt. Reminds me of the experiment where they taped PPL in a waiting room. Every time a beep occurred, everyone would stand and sit. An on-actor walks in, and after 2 beeps starts doing it as well. And it got to the point where only the outsider was the only one in the room and he keeps standing. So they brought in other non-actors and they did the same thing the original non-actor was doing, even though they were now both alone and don't know why they do it. That's so cool. If you see it in the bigger picture, that's so similar to how age-old traditions stand through the test of time. Suddenly people come up with their own reasons, but never even knew the original reasons of the traditions. Not a psychologist, but the one where given a choice between sitting down doing nothing and shocking oneself, people tend to choose the shock. Ergo, we would choose pain over boredom. Curiosity over boredom maybe? Stimuli, even. Negative, no stimuli. I don't know the name of it, but apparently 2 people become closer if they survive through something together. Not even actual surviving death scenarios, but anything that has you on your toes and heart racing. Like a roller coaster. Had to look it up, because I remember hearing about this one. This attribution of arousal, not necessarily sexual arousal, but any sort of heightened or hairline emotional state. If you're with someone, your brain may link the two. We looked at a case study of a couple who weren't that great for each other. They had fairly destructive tendencies and a good bit of argumentation, non-compromise, and tearing each other down. But they were wildly crazy, rom-com level head over heels for each other. Their early dating included roller coaster rides, the car breaking down at 10 p.m. while it was snowing, and they had to walk home miserable, the store being robbed while they were there, and a death in each family. Early dating included roller coaster rides, the car breaking down at 10 p.m. while it was snowing, and they had to walk home miserable, the store being robbed while they were there, and a death in each family. Don't go giving people ideas. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.